Thanks for listening to DIY for Business. I guess thanks for viewing as well as we go video here on YouTube. Check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We're going to be there for you. How's it going, Greg?
It's going well. How about yourself, Russ?
Good, good, good. I feel like because of the pickleball podcast
Yes.
that we work on together, I'm sort of getting used to the video thing. I'm glad we did it on that one because it's I mean, this is business, right? We got to put the collar shirt on and stuff. So that one,
Well, yeah, you can wear a t-shirt, you can wear a cap, you can wear whatever you want.
exactly.
But
I
I've
have to.
noticed in business, the more and more people lately have been wearing the t-shirts and caps to business meetings.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you say that because that's exactly we always like say, "Oh, well, you got something to talk about?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got something to talk." That's exactly where I was going. So you're reading my mind here.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah. So
We
I
haven't
just
known
went
each other
into an
for a long
office.
time, Russ. So
Exactly, right? So I just went into an office and we did this little office meeting, and it's funny. I'm walking through. I walked through downtown Oakland. I walked through downtown San Francisco,
and
and
you're here to talk about it?
I'm here to talk about it. Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness.
I
You
felt
are the
safe.
lucky one.
Don't listen to the media. I totally felt safe in both cities, actually. But so I'm comparing it though to back when I would do that back in the 90s, the late 90s, walking
Right.
through downtown San Francisco, walking through downtown Oakland. You've got a lot of business suits. You've got a lot of people like dressed up, right? In the like like they're
Right.
going to go on TV now, like they're newscasters or something, right? Like like that's what you were seeing. But now it's like I would say half the people are in shorts.
Yep.
Half the people are in t-shirts. Like it's such a different thing. It's funny how much it's changed.
Yeah, I remember when I started in the tech industry in the very early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shirt and tie and suit to every
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and just wearing around the office. You had your shirt and tie on,
Yeah.
and that was
Yeah.
tech. And then I would guess, gosh, I'm thinking probably late 90s is when I started seeing t-shirts or polo
Mm-hmm.
shirts more often
Right.
in the tech industry. And I kind of think the tech industry is kind of the origin of where the casual business attire started.
Right.
Don't you think so? Like, some of the
Yeah.
larger
Yeah.
tech companies
Definitely.
decided to
Yeah.
go casual, and then everybody kind of followed suit.
Right. Well,
No pun
I followed
intended.
suit. I get it. Yeah, I worked in I worked in radio. So in radio, you did have the DJs coming in, and but still they're wearing like a polo shirt or they're wearing something unless it's a weekend or and other people are not in there. But the salespeople, the sales folks would always dress up, right? Like
Yeah.
they were the best dressed people in the building. So when you're doing now, and actually I guess most of your stuff is on Zoom, so it doesn't matter. You could wear a suit and tie and go pantsless, I guess, at this point. But doing your sales meetings, do you dress up for those?
Well, don't tell my secret about what I'm wearing. But I do not, for Zoom meetings right now, I'm wearing mostly collared shirts, like golf shirts type of
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
And once in a while, I'll wear, a button-down shirt, depending on the audience, right? I
Mm-hmm.
try to cater to the audience that I'm working with, right? I want to make them feel comfortable. I don't want to make them feel out of place.
Right.
So I try to mimic. If I'm talking to a contractor, for example, I'm not going to be wearing a button-down, shirt. So,
Mm-hmm.
I try to make them feel as comfortable as possible and make me very relatable to them.
Right. And you're dealing with a lot of clients here in California as well. So I wonder, maybe we should ask our guest this question as well. We've got Ian
Yeah.
Moyse on the show joining us today. Talk sales, talk consulting, but I guess we'll start with fashion. Ian, where are you?
Saying that question now, my wife would immediately be, sorry, you're asking him about what? I usually get, I'm the one that usually gets you're wearing that with that. Those colors don't go. And to me,
same here.
I don't know. The color, to me, the colors go, but apparently they don't. And you need that advice, right? So I take it. But yeah, in the business area, talking to it, maybe so. I think the UK and Europe, I think it's parochial. I think we've changed in different time periods for sure.
Mhm.
And I think Greg's point is you dress to your audience, right? So I prefer to dress casual. Coming on here, business pod, I've got a shirt on. I could have been in a sweatshirt, but I chose,
Mhm.
but I'm not in a shirt and tie. Whereas years ago, I certainly would have been.
Oh, totally.
And
Totally.
thinking back to my first job, I was a tech in the first jobs. And I remember, it was funny when you said that, I hadn't thought about it for forever, is going to, and it was at IBM, in the tech, programming department, and I wore a suit. And I'm thinking, hang on a
Mhm.
minute, I wasn't front end, but I still did that because that was sort of the thing of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
today, if I was going to see, blue chip customers in the city, in London or something, I dress appropriately. I'm not going to go in jeans or whatever. If I'm going to see someone I know and I know their office and it's totally casual and there's a customer I'm thinking of, I'd be quite comfortable going in jeans. I wouldn't go in ripped jeans, but I'd
Uh-huh.
go
Right.
smart casual, right? What we
Right.
Mhm.
define as smart business casual, maybe a jacket, but it would look like you'd wear out an evening casual sort of thing, as opposed to, well, they go into a business meeting as you described, Russ, you're seeing them. So I think
Yeah.
it's appropriate to the audience, and play safe. That's my one. It is
Yeah.
always
Well,
what's the safe bet, and I'll take that.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing though. I've always had issues with that. And by the way, my wife totally the same thing. She's like, "You're wearing really those colors?" I've actually chosen Greg, how often do you see me wearing a black shirt? It's because I can't
Um,
match color when it comes
you
to
like
clothes, and
every day I've ever met you, or
I just I've like well, okay, so Steve Jobs, always wore that same thing because it
Mhm.
was just like he didn't want to have to think about it. So he put on that, whatever the turtleneck thing, and there you go, that was him, and it
Right.
became his thing. But like, it's just easy. It's like I don't want to have to think about it. Let me just throw on a black shirt, and I'm good. Whatever I'm wearing, like I don't have to worry about matching the colors. So I've sort of taken that approach to it a bit. um,
I remember going in the early 90s. Do you remember Ross Perot? He ran for president in the
I
United
do.
States.
Hmm.
He
I
ran
do.
EDS was his company out of
Mhm.
Texas. And I was doing a presentation for him and his board of directors.
Oh, wow.
And it was the most buttoned up company I had ever seen. Everybody was wearing the exact same colored, like, blazer or suit color, shirt color,
Mm.
tie. Everything was blue gray. Everything was blue gray.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and, I still remember you walk into the lobby, and then you walk down a long, skinny hallway, up a flight of stairs, and then you go into a boardroom that's a whole glass wall just overseeing their manufacturing plant
Mm.
of computer products, and that's where their boardroom was. A long table, like something you would see out of, like, a Harry Potter, movie, right, where everybody's sitting, those by, like, 20
Wow.
people. They put me at the end to do this presentation. I'm, like, yelling to try to get to the people at the end of the table. It was,
Oh,
as you were
man.
saying, try to feel comfortable in a meeting, in a sales meeting. I was not comfortable. That was not comfortable.
Oh, yeah. That would be rough. It's like past the salt moment, right? Like on the TV show. We're
Yeah,
sitting
and I wore a
outside.
red tie, so I totally didn't fit in.
Oh, jeez. No, no
The
good.
power tie.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I thought I was going power tie, but I was like, "Oh, no." So, yeah, I knew I
So
was in
Ian,
trouble.
we just brought you right in here because we're that
Sure,
comfortable with you, where we
that's all
just
right.
brought you right in. But we should probably tell everyone a little of your background. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Sure, I'll keep it short and sweet. So, been in the IT tech sector all my career. Started, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, in programming, and that's what I loved was doing the techie side, and I fell into the sales side because there was an opportunity came up to do a junior inside
Hmm.
sales role at a small company, and there was three salespeople, one MD, one secretary, and it was building this new division for, if anyone remembers, Novell Networking, which was the market leader
Yes.
for, yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
had high 90% market share at one point, and so yeah, so I came into a company that was going to distribute that in the UK, didn't know what it was. And that was a good
Hmm.
grounding for me, I think, for maybe what we'll talk about is smaller businesses, is learning about being hands-on, and all you don't know all the answers, and you don't have someone to tell you all the answers and having to figure it out. And then
Right.
I've moved through my career, as people do, through different sales roles, sales leadership, and spent the last 16 years doing sales leadership in cloud computing, which is a really interesting area, changing the world as we know, and continuing to do so. And I've done some consulting, helping companies. Typically what I've done many times is joined a smaller organization who are looking to grow, to help them look at their sales processes, the salespeople, and that whole piece. So I've been brought in where there is a sales team or there isn't anything yet, and I'm the first on the ground to build that out and figure out how do we make this successful? Where do we focus? What do we do to drive the revenue of the business? And that's sort of where my focus lies. And I've spent a lot of time doing that. I still learn every time I do something, and from people like yourselves, I'm still learning, but I've got a lot of experience in helping smaller organizations drive growth.
You say the word consultant, and I think back to I mentioned earlier that I worked in radio, and we would get consultants to come in. They didn't know the market really, but they had this sort of format of cleaning house and making changes and doing something completely different than we are, or just changing a word or two. But in changing that word or two, they would let a bunch of people go. So I feel like consultants have sort of it's sort of a dirty word sometimes. So in talking to like small, like or medium-sized businesses, the owners may feel a little apprehensive about bringing somebody in that's a consultant just because of that, because their team also is going to feel that way. Uh, should it be a dirty word anymore?
So I agree with you. And if I was a small business owner, what would I look at? I'd look at, it's not about the word consultant, it's about who is the individual and the experience. And you talk to them first, right? You don't just hire them off a page because they say they're a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to understand, and I'm in discussion with an organization at the moment, and so let me tell you what they're concerned about. And I absolutely concur with them, is what's the impact on the existing people of bringing someone in right from the start, right? Because I've been brought into companies where I've joined the organization, and the people in the team that I'm going to be leading and those involved with did not know I was coming in at all until the day I joined. And I've
Mm,
watched their faces and then had to deal with that, right? Because it's like rabbit in headlights, because the first thing people think is, what does this mean to me? There's a fear factor of what's going to change, right? People like the status quo. It may not be delivering the best results, but they're comfortable. And anyone coming in external, there is a fear factor of those individuals in the business already of what's this going to break? What's it going to disrupt? Whether it's going to be better in the long
right.
run, but I didn't ask for this and whatever. So it's all about the people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst what I look at may involve the process, the people, the technology, and coaching and all this stuff, the only one that's going to worry about it is the people. So I think in bringing a consultant in, it's really important to choose the right person. It's not the organization you hire if it's a company, but what's the demeanor of the people, and how do they work? Because consultant is a nice label, but you could say that about anything, right? Salesperson, technical person, marketing person, whatever. But they're not all the same.
Right.
They're not all the same, and they won't
Yeah,
approach it
it's
the
how they
same, and they
fit
may
into
not
your
fit your
organization.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I always feel like when you're bringing somebody from the, quote, outside, right? There's always that fear like, well, they don't know our business. They haven't been doing it for 10
Uh-huh.
years like I've been doing it. And when I've done consulting, and especially sales consulting in the past, one of the first things I do is ask them a lot of questions. So they feel their voice is being heard, and they don't feel as intimidated like, oh, I'm just going to blow this thing up, I'm going to change everything, without understanding their processes and their techniques and what their product is or service. How do you feel about that, Ian?
Totally, I put my thumbs up on the video when you were saying it. Totally agree, 100%. The first thing I describe to people is because people want to know, what are you going to do, right? And I say, firstly, there's no magic golden key to this or one where you just come in
Mm.
and 2 days in you go, right, here's all your answers, and it doesn't work that way. What I position to them is, look, I've been on a journey and I've got a lot of experiences in a lot of organizations of driving growth and the right behaviors and coaching, all this nice stuff. But I don't know your company and your people and your problems and your processes, but I've got all this experience I'm bringing. Your people and what you're doing also have a lot of stuff that I won't know. We've all been on different journeys through our career. So even if I'm hiring someone, I'll say to them, you know, I don't know all the right answers. I may be in this leadership position, but you will bring things to the party. You will have ideas of how we approach a particular customer scenario or a situation. And you have a voice, right? Because your experience, what you've done in your career, whether you're a junior SDR or a very senior seasoned salesperson, we've all been on different journeys. So therefore our brain will say, well, I do this or I do this. It's all valid to discuss, right? It may not be the best situation here because well, in my experience there, oh, I hadn't thought of that. But everyone should be allowed that. And certainly coming into these things, I think it's really important people understand the first thing for me is assimilation, is understanding what is the current situation. Why do you sell to this type of customer? Why do you lose customers? What's the pains in the business? What does work? What doesn't work in what in your opinions is all this stuff? So I can get the best understanding. And then with my experience, I'll formulate what I think is going to be some of the paths we'll take, and then we'll discuss it collaboratively. But there has to be, and agree this with the business owners or my CEO, depending on what the type of role is, there has to be somewhere where decisions have to be made, and some of those decisions the decisions can't be by consensus, right? They can't be by vote. Some of the decisions will be uncomfortable, but it's how you explain them and engage people and take them through that. I've had salespeople before adamantly thinking this isn't going to, oh my god, and I remember one particularly said to me a year, 18 months in, when you joined, all the things you proposed to do, change the type of customer focus, all these things that you assimilated and came down to, I thought I didn't get it. I didn't think you were, but now I'm earning more money. We're doing bigger customer sales. Look where we are on the trajectory. I get it, but it was over a beer sort of thing. I never thought I'd tell you, but I got to know you well enough. I really thought you were shooting it out of somewhere, and it wasn't going to. And but it was, but that individual said to me, but the way you put it across, the way you involved us, I came for the ride. And that's the thing that's important, I think, the approach.
And you know, that sort of brings up like with that approach, right? I'm thinking about this. I you know, ran a company for a dozen or so years, and I was very specific on how we did sales, right? How we got new customers coming in or even dealing with past customers. Like I was very specific on how I wanted that done. And I mean, it worked, fortunately. But let's say I was very specific about things and it wasn't working. I needed to bring on a consultant, but now I'm sort of set in my ways, right? Like, no, 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 this is the way I want to do it. So when you bring on a consultant for like, I don't know, doing your taxes, right? You're going to let them do their thing because they know more about it. But when you're in this sales thing and you're already a salesperson, it's got to be sort of hard to make them change their minds, right? To make them adapt and take on what you're offering them. Have you ever encountered that with a client?
I've encountered it with a company I worked for.
Oh, really? Okay.
I won't name it, and I've worked for a number, so it's hidden in there. But yeah, so I'll give it very short thrift. But yeah, absolutely, and it's got to be. I think you've got to ask coming into that scenario that what would I be asking you? So you know, Ross, you're saying that to me. Ian, can you come in and we'll talk about it? And we're obviously having the discussion, so you're open to it. I would be quantifying with you, how open are you? And I'd ask that question back to you, right? Is look, it's your baby. How open are you to things being changed and are resistant? In this scenario experience, I sort of asked that, maybe not hard enough, and it was something, one of my learning exercises, because the business had been flat for 5 years, wanted me to come in and do all what I do and other businesses. And then as soon as I started wanting to change anything, you can't change that. You can't do that. You can't have that system. You can't change that. You can't. It was like, hang on a second. My hands are, I'm literally shackled. What do you want me to do? And it was very uncomfortable. You know, I've been lucky in my career. It's the only time I've experienced that. And
Nice.
probably since that, I qualify a lot harder with if it was you, Russ, I'd be asking you very harshly and firmly, you've got to be open and making sure we've agreed that at the beginning, because you're absolutely right. You can do all the other stuff, but if the key person there is going to be resistant or blocking everything, you can't produce the results you're being asked to produce. Therefore, you will be unsuccessful coming in and helping.
Right, and it's that way with anything, right?
Yeah.
any of the consultants, like, yeah.
And I think sales, Greg, we were talking earlier about your key in sales. What's your thoughts? Because for me, sales is a very emotional one. Sales and marketing, I would say, is very emotional. You know, technology and other parts of the business. You mentioned finance. There are
There's set rules.
Sales is more, there's processes, but they're very, whereas sales and marketing are more fluid, and there's more opinion comes into it. And Greg, what do you think? I think it's the harder one to deal with.
Yeah, I think it is a difficult one. And I think in the scenario that Russ threw out to you, there's got to be a fit for both sides, right?
Yeah.
For this to be a successful relationship, the owner or CEO that's bringing a consultant in has to feel comfortable with that philosophy of that consultant. The consultant has to feel good about, hey, I have a little bit of freedom here to make some changes that I feel appropriate. But I agree with both of you that it is such an emotional thing when it comes to sales, and people are very opinionated when it comes to it, right? It's very unique that I find people that are flexible in their sales processes and their philosophies. Usually, after a certain amount of time of doing sales, they kind of are set in a certain method that they do it. And it's difficult for people to make change. And just in general, it's difficult for people to make change. But in sales, usually they're kind of in a comfort zone, but that's probably why they're in a rut. And that's probably why the sales haven't elevated and they need to level up, because they're stuck and they need something to, disrupt the processes they're in or the ruts that they're in so that they can level up. And I think that's why they bring you in, Ian, is because they need an outside set of eyes, ears, voice that really can open their eyes to like, oh, now I get it. That's why I'm not getting the sales I need. That's why people aren't listening to me. That's why they're not setting meetings with me. And it's just all about getting the buy-in to the disruption.
I agree. And a lot of it is, sorry to interrupt, a lot of it I think is they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Because they've been on that journey, right? And they've got the blinkers on. This is what they don't know what they don't know. And what I always position, and when I coach salespeople that are working with the same thing is a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. We overcomplicate sales. I believe people talk too much about sales methodologies, Medic, Spin, Scotsman, Taz. So I can keep going. There's dozens of them, right? And they're all good as a foundation to hang something on. But I think people hang too much on that as opposed to some of the fundamentals, relationships versus rapport, engagement with the person. It's a person that you're selling to. We haven't got to the point where AI is buying AI at the moment. There goes my camera went off for a second. I don't know what's happening.
All right.
It will come back.
We've got an icon talking for you, so you're okay.
There you go. Yeah, it's what I'm saying is the most important thing, hopefully.
Well, as soon as you mentioned AI, the alarms went off, and someone out there in the universe said, nope.
I know. I won't fiddle too much because we don't want to lose the sound, but hopefully it'll pick itself back up. The light's still on, saying the camera's on. So I think we overcomplicate a lot of this, and I always say to anyone, it's not rocket science, right? It's focus. Make sure you're doing the best you can do on the fundamental parts. And there's certain parts of that, like questioning, like understanding the ideal customer profile, knowing your competition and when to exit a sale early and not waste time. There's basics that people aren't doing well enough. And I don't know your opinion on that, guys, but questioning is my big bugbear, and I talk about this often. I interview a lot of salespeople. I'm a judge on a number of sales awards, like Women in Sales Awards. So I interview other people's salespeople as part of the awards, but I interview salespeople to employ them, and I'm always shocked at the lack of quality of questioning of the average salesperson.
Yeah. I want to jump in because I just actually changed my SDR's initial phone call. Like the very first call they make to a company now, I'm
This is a
having them kind of
this is a
introduce
cold call.
cold call,
Okay.
cold call to a business. Yeah, no lead in or anything. And what I've trained them to do now is ask a very customized question to that
Hmm.
business. And once they ask that question, it really, brings more attention to that call. Is like, salespeople don't typically ask that kind of question when they call me. This is really getting my
Nice.
attention,
Right.
and it gets them in conversation, which is the goal of the first one, right? It's usually
Hmm.
trying to, do a little fact finding and build some rapport. So you want to get them in conversation, and asking this very customized question is allowing our people to get into a lot better conversations initially in the very first call they ever make. So I agree with
Right.
Ian that questioning and having a smart question. Don't do these generic questions. I mean,
Right.
come on, that
Right.
everybody can see right through that. But if you
Uh-huh.
can do a little research and come up with a very intelligent question that is pertinent to that business, then you will grab their attention and they'll want to have a conversation with you.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and that's
oh, sorry, go
go
on, go on,
go
go
no,
on,
go
go on.
ahead, Ian. Go ahead.
And I was going to say it's not doing the linear questioning is the big tip I'd give. And people are taught this through the methodologies, as I mentioned. Like, let's take BANT. I could pick any of them. I'd have a salesperson come to say, I've got it. I know what budget they've got. Okay. Firstly, I don't always care whether they've got a budget or not, because if I've got something that solves a problem, they'll create a budget. But okay, so and they'll say the budget is. I'll give you a very real example here. The budget is 17.9K. Budget is 22K, whatever. Okay. And the first thing I ask the salesperson is, if I'm coaching them, is, okay, why is the budget 22K? And most of them will go, I don't know. Because what they've done is tick the box, they got the budget and gone, right, now I'm looking for how you make your buying process. No, I want to, someone tells me they've got a budget, well, and the number, I'm going to say, well, why is it that number? There's a reason.
Hmm.
Oh, it's because that's
Right.
what we paid for the last solution. Okay. Does that mean why are you getting rid of the last solution? Oh, because it didn't do what was wanted, etc. Okay. So if my solution can drive this result, this outcome, whatever it is this is relevant to in the business, if it's not 22K, does that mean you wouldn't do it? No, the problem's really important to us. Okay, so the budget, there'll be more budget. Yes. And is there a process to get that? Right. I'm still on the same question of budget, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. I always say to salespeople, if I come away in a competitive situation and I know 20 things about that customer that you don't, doesn't mean I'm going to win, but I'm in a better position to win, or to decide not to engage and waste my time because
Hmm.
I've got more
Right.
information. And
Right.
most salespeople skim the surface on questioning, and that's the one that you win on, right? And that's what you should be doing internally in the coaching piece. Salesperson comes to you, this deal's coming in next week. Definitely. We're forecasting it. Okay, why is it coming in next week? Oh, because they told me. Okay, well, what happens if it doesn't come in next week for the customer? I don't know. So
Right.
could they delay it? Guy goes on holiday. Is there any pain to them? They don't ask.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And how, it's not difficult, right? So I'll get people to phone them back, phone the customer back, and just say, I've had some coaching. There goes my video again. Apologies. Let's keep talking.
No worries.
Phone that prospect back, be professional. Say, do you know what, Dave? I hope you don't mind. When I spoke to you, I've let myself down, and I hope you don't mind. Have you got a couple more minutes? Yeah. Well, I should have asked some questions I didn't ask, and I've had some. I want to be the best I can be in engagement with you, and
I like
explain
Hmm.
that.
that.
Yeah, I
Throw
like that.
Yeah.
yourself on the sword, right?
Yeah.
People deal with people. They're not going to go, well, you're an idiot then. Da, 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 da. They're going to respect you in the way you handle it, and that you're a real, genuine person who can own up to a mistake and come back and talk to them. If you lose a deal, phone the customer and say, look, thanks for all the time you gave us during the process. I'm not going to try and convince you otherwise, but would you give me a few moments of your time for the time we invested? And I felt we had good rapport during it. Did we not, Russ? Yes, we did. So could you tell me
Yeah.
what we could have done differently? Why did we really lose, so that next time I don't make the same mistakes?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was
Questions.
one of the things I've mentioned this on the show before. Back when I was doing sales, so I did production and all that stuff, on air stuff, and in radio, and I realized Well, there's two kinds of cars in the parking lot. There's the really old, not looking great cars, and there's these brand new, like, I called it Pentos and Porsches. Like, I'm like, all the salespeople have these nice cars. Like, maybe I should transfer over to sales and see if what I can do. And I've done some sales in the past, so I went over to the sales side, and I would always keep track of all the no's. I wouldn't keep, like, track of the yeses. Like, because I knew that every no would go
Yeah.
on the yes. But the other thing that I would always do is I would always ask that why. I would always try to figure out, like, okay, well, they said no. Why? Why? Well, it's not in my budget. Why? Like, I would ask those questions, and sometimes those no's would turn into a yes. Most of the time, it would turn into a hang up, but not lying. That would happen.
Well,
But
sometimes, Russ, get your boss to do it. Get your boss to do it. I'd do it
oh yeah,
with
that's
my
true.
salespeople.
Yeah.
I'd say, look, if it's an important deal, we spend a lot of time, and sometimes therefore I'd been engaged with the client at some level anyway.
Mhm.
I'd put the call in and say, look, I'm disappointed to hear we lost your business. I'm not here to try and convince you or change your mind. Let's put that out there straight away, so your guard's down. Can you help me just understand what we'd have done differently? Is it something in the product? Is it something in our pros?
Right.
Just so that I can understand if there's something I can learn from this for next time, that would give me the value back from the investment we made in the all the time we spent with you. Is that fair to ask, Russ? Is that fair to ask, Greg? And most people are, if you've built rapport, they're going to go, yeah, sure. And I've had one major client, so it was in the UK, spent an hour with me, debriefing me massively, and we learned tons of stuff about the product and what our competition had done differently, etc.
Nice. I did that. So Greg, when we were doing some media deal
Yeah.
together, there was a rep that came out to meet with me, and I don't know. This was like our second meeting, and he brings in this pitch, and um, it was about a half an hour into the meeting. I just go, I'm not going to do this, right? He's like, what? Like, there's no way I'm going to do this because you haven't done this, 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 and this. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, why should I go afterwards and, say, like, I'm going to think about this, and, so I just went into this whole debrief with this person and told them how they could actually approach this better. And I basically, I
You made
turned
the
it
sale
into
for them.
I pretty much, I was like, here's how you could win this deal. Give me this, do this exact thing. Like, like, basically change the whole agreement. And it was a totally different way of negotiating, because I was just, like, saying, here's what we want. Like, give us this and we'll go with it. And, he ended up going with it. And then later on, that same salesperson came back another time and thanked me, because, like, the process that I went through with him in that meeting, he actually did with another client and got the other client. So
Oh, that's good. Actually,
that's the way to do it.
that brings me to a question for Ian. Like, one of my
Sure.
pet peeves nowadays is when people come in and do a presentation for me and they just are so determined to go through their deck. Like,
Oh,
like
oh,
the generic deck. It's like, well,
Yeah.
what? I don't
no.
care about the stats that you pulled, that you makes your company look
Uh-huh.
good or makes your product look good. Like, take a little time to understand who I am, and, like Russ is saying, what his needs are before, yeah, you have a deck. Great. It's great that you have it, but don't be so determined that you have to stick to it. How do you
Right.
feel about that, Ian?
Greg, 1000%. And I'm going to give you a perfect example that I always use with salespeople when I tell them this. And I'll do it a short story, as I can make this quickly. But a number of years ago, I was selling CRM systems. A prospect comes in. We're up against the 2 or 3 major vendors. I mean, conglomerates, right? The global names, the brands. We did not have that brand, and we respected that. We were a specialist. And that individual came in. And I started off the meeting with exactly that. With, look, we've got lovely slide decks and demo, and we can show you all that for the next 2 hours that we've got allocated. Is 2 hours still okay? Yeah, great. Firstly, though, I'd like to understand why you're doing this. And we just went into, I'd like to ask you a lot of questions, and they may challenge you, but to get an understanding of whether we're the right fit or not. Because I don't know if we are. I know we can do a good job generically, but Yeah, sure, that's fine. And we ask questions, right? 2 hours in, the individual, always remember this, and they'll know who they are if they hear this. I remember them saying, "Do you know what, guys? I've got to go. 2 hours. This has been I'm exhausted." And it smiled, and went, but in a good way, in a good way. And you have asked me questions that none of the others have asked me, and I don't know the answers to about our project. And it's really valuable to me, and I really respect that. And I know I haven't seen the product or whatever. And I said, well, look, we can show you that when it's relevant, but we need, that's not what it's about. It's about understanding, can we solve your business problems? Can we
Right.
bring value to you and do business together? So we're finding that out together. And we won that deal in the end, not just because of how we handled the meeting, right? Because we then had to do other stuff and whatever, but we earned the respect and rapport of that individual, to your point, Greg, because all of the others, he said, then this is the point, he said to us, all of the others have asked me a few questions at the beginning, and as fast as they could turn it to them, have then done their corporate deck and demo and taken over the whole meeting, and it's been about them.
Yeah.
You've made this all about me and my project and made me more comfortable that
Mhm.
you at least care.
Right.
Right.
So I 100%,
Yeah.
1000% agree with you.
This is sort of making me think of the movie Air, the Air Jordan thing. Have you seen that, Greg or
I haven't
Ian?
seen it
I've
yet. I
not.
need to
I've
see it.
not.
Oh, it's a sales movie. I mean,
Everybody tells me it's Nike trying to get Michael Jordan, right?
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's a sales movie, and I watched it with my son because oh let's watch this sports movie. But it was so cool to watch that because it's a sales and business movie. It's like the lessons in there are so important. So the salesperson for Nike says, "Oh, you're going to go into whatever I can't think of the other brand, whatever Reebok, and they're going to say this. They're going to go through this whole thing, and then later in the movie, they're at like the Reebok or wherever the other company
Yeah.
is, and they're doing that same exact thing, and they're just going through their motions, and not treating Jordan as he's special, and that's how Nike,
Well, did
got the
you ever
deal.
hear the legendary story about Steph Curry?
No,
So Steph
what's this?
Curry was being pitched by Nike, and they used the wrong deck. They used the wrong slide, and it wasn't customized to Steph Curry, and he was completely insulted, and that's why he ended up going with Under Armour. But
Right.
yeah, he was leaning towards Nike until they totally messed up the sales presentation, and he goes, "No way, I'm not going with these guys. They don't even know who I am."
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's so important. And I think of, because nowadays I'm dealing more on the technical side, well, the marketing side and the technical side, right? So, I'm working with different clients, and the what we're doing is like Beeswax, the company I work with, they're building custom applications for people, right? And a lot of that is about custom CRM. And the thing is, it's like the custom CRM, something that's built for you specifically, like the software that you and I work together on, Greg,
Right.
for your company. The custom CRM is so much better because it's exactly adapting to your business. And in hearing this conversation, I can't help but think about that and think, well, same with sales, right? Same, like it's all the same when you can customize it specifically to your business and to your customers and to your like who you are and fit it in like a glove. It's so much better, and it feels like, I think, going back to that first question I asked you, Ian, the dirty word of consultant, I think the dirty word of consultant is the folks that just come in with a plan that's not designed for that. It's like, I've got the plan, here it is, this is what you're going to do. No, that's not my business. That's
Yeah, I've
not
already got the
how we
I've
do
already got
things.
the answer. Yeah, I've already got the answer. What's the question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And it's aligned to sales, right? Greg did a good example there with the presentation, but it's the mistake you make in sales is the same. Is about predetermining and following a predetermined pattern of, this is it, I'm going to do it. Well, every customer and every individual in that customer is different, has been on a different journey, and you should treat them in that way and with that respect, right? You're not going to get on with all of them. You don't, this bugbear of mine as well that I talk about is salespeople who say, "Well, I've got a great relationship with them." Well, have you? Would the customer describe it that way, or is it
Right.
rapport? There's a very big difference between rapport and relationship. And if you misinterpret that, a relationship to me is you can ask them for a big ask, and not be embarrassed about it, like a friend. And can you loan me some money? And if you go up to someone on the street and go, excuse me, and you're very polite, excuse me, sir, madam, yeah, I hope you don't mind. Have you got the time? They'll give you the time, right? Oh yeah, sure. Now try it with, excuse me, so have you got $10? Very different response.
Right.
First one is rapport. The second one, you need relationship to get, because you're asking for more. If you had a relationship with them and there's someone you know, yeah, sure, it's $10. Well, enjoy. It's salespeople misunderstand that, and I think that's down to it's all about engagement with people, and even small businesses. That's one of the things I help people and coach salespeople on, particularly is they're missing very small triggers and things along the way, that if you make those marginal adjustments, these aren't big things, they're all doable, you get a big compounding impact, right? If you ask better questions and get some coaching on that, if you look at your average deal value, the win rate you've got, who your ideal customer is, why do you win certain customers not, if you understand all these there's lots of different things, you get an understanding of those and make each of them a little bit better than they are today. Not massively, just a little bit better on all of them. The compounding result has a massive impact on your revenue. And that's all I've done in all the ones I've dealt with. Is I haven't come in, as I say, with that golden key of, oh my God, because you haven't missed something fundamental and massive, right? You haven't, because you wouldn't be running a business. You wouldn't have a business.
Right.
But it's the small tuning that you can do on it. It's like the race car. You take it in and suddenly your car drives better. They haven't changed the engine, all the stuff. What they've done is tuned and adjusted, and a combination of small things that has had an impact.
Right.
So you mentioned advising small businesses, medium-sized businesses. You're out there able to help. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Sure, thank you for that. Easiest way is to find me on LinkedIn. Ian Moyse. You'll find me at www.IanMoyse.co.uk, and that will take you straight to my profile, or just search for me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'll be there.
And I just want to make sure everybody knows the spelling. It's IanMoyse.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us on DIY for Business. And thank you all for listening to DIY for Business and actually watching it for the first time ever here on YouTube. I think this is the first time ever. I don't know. I'm losing track. We're doing so many of these recordings. But yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing wherever you are. It's easy on YouTube. Just hit the little subscribe. If you hit the little bell thing, then you get notified every time we put up something, which is kind of a cool thing. So be sure to do that. And as always, all of the information provided here on DIY for Business is meant for informational purposes only. We strongly suggest that you chat with somebody about your business to get advice that is catered exactly to you, which so fits what we're talking about today, doesn't it?
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll talk to you next time on DIY for Business, where you are not alone.